before we get started, well, first of all, we have to thank you guys for 800 subscribers on our YouTube channel. It's been some outrageously good support, and of course, now we've hit our target. That means we've got a new one. So we're now aiming for 900 subscribers. So if you do enjoy our content and you want to hear more from us, you want to be the first to hear about everything that's going on, because we do have some cool stuff planned, then please do subscribe. It costs you nothing, and yeah, like I said, exciting things in the pipeline. So yeah, let's get on with the episode.
Awesome, thank you, Luke. Hello, everybody. Welcome back. I hope you're all keeping well. Happy Mother's Day to all your mothers that hopefully are listening to this. I hope they all had a good day. Like I said, I hope you have as well. Yeah, you would, Luke. If you'd like to subscribe, that'll massively be helpful. And thank you for the support for the video on Wednesday with those fans who talk about the play. I'd like, what is it, like the playoff charge? Like, yeah, yeah, you tell I'm not really much in it tonight, but yeah, thank you for support on that. If you do want to get involved, make sure to send us a message, and we'll see what we can do going forward. We're hopeful to do one next week with the other teams in and around the promotion picture, like the playoff picture as well. It'd be quite difficult for Notts, I think, because they're playing on Wednesday, as Luke pointed out earlier. So we'll have to see on that one, but we might have to come to some sort of compromise on that. But thanks very much for that. But we are joined by Luke, as you could probably hear. Good weekend.
Not really. I'm still angry. I'm absolutely fuming, but I mean, we will get into that later. I have a lot of words. Not all of them can be repeated on a podcast.
Well, there you go. Yeah. Honestly, one day, these WhatsApp chats are going to come out, and we're going to see some of your thoughts, thinking, right, okay, this team, how are they winning and all that, and how didn't we score, and all that sort of stuff, because you do it
I didn't send them.
every time.
I wasn't too bad. I wasn't too bad this time.
I mean, to be fair,
only sent a
compared to
couple
other
messages.
teams this season, no, I guess she wouldn't. I guess she wasn't. Newport springs to mind as a favourite. That was an interesting day. I remember that as well, coming back from Blundell Park, and I just see you and Kieran was just adding fuel to the fire, and you were biting back every time. I liked it. It was so fun to
Well,
watch.
the thing is, he's a wind-up merchant, and I'm a wind-up merchant, so something's got to give in that. And I don't think either of us were prepared to
I mean,
back
to be
down
fair,
on
he
that.
tried having a little bit of problem. Me saying, right, okay, from the game against Colchester on Friday, right, we're unchanged. We've got an unchanged lineup. Because you don't change your winning team. I was like, yeah, because you beat Newport. I was like, yeah, and that was our last game. I'm just, I don't really know where he's coming from. Saying, it's a team that the best player was Carl Ludden. Apparently, he wasn't even playing because he's injured. So yeah, I mean, yeah, enjoy Kieran. Your team is terrible, as I said the other week, really, and improved with the loss. But let's get straight into it. Let's go straight to Friday night, shall we? Let's go to the JobServe Community Centre, in which I don't really know how, but we somehow managed to find a pitch that's somehow worse than Blundell Park's. Oh my God, that Colchester pitch is absolutely horrific, and it could be that pitch that could cost them big time this season, especially in this running. Grimsby Town coming away with another victory on the road. We're pretty good at doing that, winning 2-1. Let's pick no bones about it. Colchester have been the form team since the start of the year. They've been very good. They've been quite solid at home. They haven't lost since January, I didn't believe it was. But I thought we were absolutely outstanding to a man, and I thought we thoroughly deserved the victory. I thought the first half was a good watch if you're watching it from a neutral. There were two teams there that were going at it. Colchester had that goal that was disallowed. I can only assume for offside. There weren't really any clear cameras for it or different cameras, so it was hard to really tell if it was or not. But I mean, I think only people at the game will probably comment on that. But I had no idea. I assumed it was for offside. And thank God for that. It was a wicked ball from Taylor, actually. I was questioning at the time, why is Lyle Taylor taking this? And he puts in a ball like that. And yeah, okay, it was hard to see why. But, we did well. We huffed and puffed in that first half. And we had some decent opportunities ourselves without really testing the keeper a great deal. But then that second half, I mean, it couldn't have started any better. It was a scrappy goal, to say the least, about 20 seconds into it. The ball from Corey to find Kieran Green, who has somehow bundled it over the line. I think he found, was it Rob Hunt? I don't think that ball from Denver Hume to Vinecourt gets talked about enough. It's a superb ball. And then, Collier have gone and equalised 5 minutes later from, I think, probably their only real threat of the night, Aurora Edwards, of course. It's a former Town player that goes and scores. It's a really good goal, actually. It was a nice ball from Jack Payne to find him. He put that away pretty well. I mean, to be fair, that was the only real thing Jack Payne did. I thought, McEachran really, kept him quiet all night. I think he probably just came home and he still found Jack Payne in his back pocket, assist aside. But then, that winner, it's the pitch's fault, isn't it? It's just sort of just bobbled from their defender. Barrington's just nicked it off him. Barrington's still got a lot of work to do there, and he's took it really well. And he's managed to find Corey. He took a touch and right into the bottom corner, and he goes off, reels away, and does the Robbie Keane celebration, which he absolutely nailed. But it felt like a huge victory. It felt like absolutely massive. And I think any questions, any doubts that I have of this team, they get answered and then some. I mean, this team, we've got a team to be proud of this season. And they're constantly, they're proving me wrong every time. Every single question out of asked, they've delivered this year. We can't rest on it, though. We've got another big game against Crewe on Tuesday. Oh, my God, if we go and beat Crewe on Tuesday, this is an out-of-form Crewe side, by the way. We know there's obviously a little bit between us. We think we've had the better of the hand recently, although they did beat us earlier in the season at Blundell Park. Plus, you've got the added spice of David Artell going back there. It could make for a good game, but it's certainly one. I think at the minute, we should be going into it with a lot of confidence. I'd probably say we're the favourites to win that. Not to say that, I think, Crewe are a dangerous side on their day, but it's absolutely a game we can win. And I think if we do win, I think we're absolutely laughing. I mean, we're 4 points clear already inside the playoffs. And it was just a terrific performance to a man. Every single one of them really played their part in that one. And I was buzzing. I was absolutely buzzing because that's not an easy place to go to. I expected a little bit more from Colchester, I can't lie, especially after recent weeks, but they have done pretty well. But I thought our lads were magnificent, and I thought we thoroughly deserved the victory.
Yeah, I mean, I 100% agree. I was watching that game, and you're right, it was a fun one for a neutral, to be fair. But the game plan for Grimsby, just spot on. Artell has absolutely nailed it. Correctly identified that Jack Payne is the key creator in that Colchester side, and I mean, he's been neutralised essentially by McEachran, and the one time that Payne did have a bit of space, that was when he created something, and when Colchester did obviously have their goal, but. Aside from that one moment, this was Grimsby in control. They may not have had the possession or whatever. They didn't need it. They were generating chances. Obviously, Colchester had that disallowed one in the first half for whatever reason they came up with for it. But beyond that, they didn't have too much going forwards. I don't know if there was perhaps a little bit of hangover from them dropping their last game after so long without a defeat, but they certainly weren't quite as strong as they have been in previous weeks. But although that being said, I do feel really bad for Tom Flanagan because, that bubble was absolutely horrendous. There is absolutely nothing he could have done about that. And Grimsby have capitalised on it. Although in terms of League Two, that pitch, wow. I mean, we're working towards a perfect holiday here. We've got one that's like a beach. You had AFC's that was like a golf course earlier on in the season. Getting ready for the summer. Let's go.
Did they have a quick trip up to Cleethorpes before that? And that's what it felt like. It was sort of weird because it was sort of like doing like lines where you just see like sand there. It just looks really weird. But and you could just see that you can see the ball bobbling, and it's like a little like couple of like potholes or whatever it was. I'm saying this like our pitch is any good. It's not. It's absolutely not. But I'd rather play on that pitch and probably what Colchester are, because that's 10 times worse. And I think for a pitch, at League Two, that's clearly unacceptable, and that's clearly that's played a factor in the game, and it could play a big factor in the season of Colchester at home. They've got some big games coming up at home. They also lost Harry Anderson to injury. There's probably question marks on whether that was the pitch as well. See, they've got question marks all over it in that sense, but even then, I just expected a bit more from them. But I think a lot of credit does have to go to our game plan. Like I said, George, I'll never not praise George McEachran. I feel like I do every week. But yeah, Jack Payne did absolutely nothing other than the assist, because he was absolutely bossed. He absolutely bossed that midfield battle, did McEachran. I just expected more from Colchester, if I'm going to be honest. That's just me. But I'm not complaining.
Well, yeah, I mean, I suppose the good thing for them is they've got a slightly easier fixture, quote unquote. It's Gillingham up next for them, and after losing your first game in ages, in the fashion they did as well to Bradford, um, you can kind of see why to an extent it's tricky to sort of bounce back when you're then up again up against another sort of strong opposition. So I think this will be the real test now. Gillingham are a slightly easier game, and this is the one they need to win. They need to get back onto that winning trend as quickly as possible. You don't want to fall away now. It's such a crucial stage of the season. There's 7 games left, something like that. This is not the time to fall away, especially when you're 4 points behind already.
Yeah, of course, and that'll be an interesting game. We'll get on to Gillingham in a little bit because there's a little bit to talk about there. But yeah, it was just nice on Friday night, just looking at a league table, seeing that we're 4 points clear in the playoffs. And at one point on Friday, we was only 2 points away from the automatic places. Like, this is not. I'm not used to this. This is just uncharted territory right here. But I'm absolutely embracing everything about it, and I was absolutely delighted with that win. Obviously, with that win, it meant that Crewe needed to respond. Really to sort of keep tabs, and they fell to a late defeat at home to Port Vale with a late goal from Jaden Stockley, which the scenes in that away and look absolutely mad if you've seen like clips from there. I've seen quite a few onto the pitch and a few paras about. It sounded like a game that Crewe did pretty well at without really scoring. I think they were certainly very much in the game, but it's just one moment. And ultimately Port Vale have taken it. They've just got the upper hand on it. But ultimately for Crewe, what is it, like 2 wins in like 11, 12 matches now? This is far from promotion form, I'll tell you that. And you sense that Tuesday for them, against Grimsby is absolutely huge. I think if they lose on Tuesday, I think they're out of it. I really do.
Yeah, I mean, I think the frustrating thing is the performance in a way was actually still kind of there. They looked good in that game. Again, I caught the beginning of this one before I headed off to go watch our game, maybe regretfully. But no, Crewe actually did perform well. They had plenty of chances, really should have done more with the chances they had. And I mean, to be fair, Port Vale were in it, and it was certainly a good game for a neutral, but for me, I think Crewe really, really had to do more. And then I think in a way, they also got lucky because I think there was a moment in that first half. I think it was Zach Williams that lashed out at one of the Port Vale players. Only got a yellow because the ref didn't really see it, so maybe should have been a straight red for violent conduct. But
Yeah, maybe.
you know,
I
I wouldn't be surprised if we hear about that in the next few days. But Port Vale rode out the storm, and one moment of quality at the end, and I mean that's why they're up there, isn't it? They're able to grind out those results.
I wouldn't even say it was quite. It was more. It came from a long throw, didn't it? And it just weren't dealt with. And obviously, with Jaden Stockley's height and his physicality, he was always going to get to the end of that. But yeah, this run for Crewe, I've seen quite a lot of criticism coming Lee Bell's way, for the fact that he sets them up to be safe. I'm not sure if that's something you agree with, because I mean, they don't particularly score a great deal. They don't particularly concede a lot either, and I think that's sort of arguably their downfall at the minute, and the fact that they've not been getting on the right end of some of these results. There's quite a few draws in there, but ultimately, the results just tell the story. They've not been, this is not promotion form. This isn't even playoff form by any means. And heading into this point, I mean, they still win with a chance. Believe it or not, because they're only 4 points. They're only 4 points adrift. But I just don't see a world that they're gonna make it on this sort of form. There's absolutely no way, unless something changes.
Well, yeah, I mean, I would agree with that. I wonder if there's an element of distrust in the backup players because obviously they have been hit hard by by injuries as well. And also, you can't use that entirely as an excuse because you're building a squad. You need everyone to be of a certain standard. But they have had a lot of players missing, and I wonder if that sort of led to a more sort of cautious approach. I mean, they've just got Dimitri back, which is obviously a huge boost. But they've also lost players in recent weeks as well. Shalay Tracy with another injury. I don't know. I don't really know what the fix is for them at the minute. And like I said, it's not like they've got many games to do it. So, well, I suppose at this point they're 4 points behind. You've just got to attack it. I think there's nothing to lose anymore. When you are the hunters, you've got nothing to lose.
I also think it's the calibre of their fixtures as well. They've still got some. I mean, they've got Grimsby to play, which is huge on Tuesday. They've still got to play Bradford. Still got to play Colchester. Depending on where Tranmere are, as I suspect, probably safe second to last game of the season compared to the other two. But they've still got to play Walsall. Cheltenham aren't playing for much, neither are MK. So I mean, there are difficult games there, but yeah, they've just got to take the shackles off. I think they've just been playing too safe, too cautiously for quite a while. And it's sort of costing them because they're not getting on the right end of the results. But they have had injuries. They've had stuff that have impacted their season. But you also look at it for Port Vale. That's huge for them because they're back into the top three now. Only 4 points behind Walsall. They could still win the league. And look, there's still teams in there that could still win the league. With Walsall dropping more points, which we should probably talk about now. 1-1 draw at home to AFC Wimbledon. It was a really nice finish from Omar Bouguil to give Wimbledon the lead. And of course, that free kick in the 87th minute from Taylor Allen.
Hey.
To share the spoils. I don't know what to think. I'm curious to get your thoughts first because I'm unsure.
I mean, it is a tricky one to judge. I think Walsall had the better of the chances, I would say, but weren't clinical enough, which you can, obviously put down to their striker or lack of striker sort of situation. But then obviously for AFC, they had a lead, and they had a lead relatively late on. They only had to hold on for 20 minutes, and they held on for 17 before that equaliser came in. It's one of those. I don't know if they'd have taken a point before the game, but I think after going ahead, it's one of those where you're like, okay, we really should have, put that away and held on at the very least. But then at the same time, I think it's a bad point for both sides. I've got to be honest. There is with everyone there, and it is so close. I mean, Walsall have had so many games that they've wasted recently. They should have won the title by now, with how far ahead they were, and they've just totally bottled it. But then equally, AFC had the lead, bottled it, and now they've wasted a chance to stay up in third because I think they would have stayed third if they'd won. So
yeah, I think they would have done.
Yeah. So for me, that's a bad point for both sides.
Yeah, and I sort of see where you're coming from. I think from an AFC perspective, I think you're disappointed for the fact that you conceded on 87 when you were close to victory. I mean, look, there were two really well taken goals in this, but I think you'll be disappointed. I think they'd be disappointed to concede so late. But would they have taken maybe a draw away from home at Walsall? Maybe, but I think there's probably a sense that that Walsall were there for the taking because they've not been in good form. But ultimately, they're still the league leaders. As for Walsall, that's their 5th draw in 7 games. No wins in that time. They need a couple of wins, and I think they need them pretty quickly. I mean, but you do look at their next couple of games. They do go to Doncaster next, and then they're at home to Port Vale. So there's 2 very difficult games, and I think there's potential because both of those teams are not out of the title contention yet either, especially Port Vale. I mean, saying that, Port Vale on 67 points and Donny are 4th on 66. Neither of them are out of contention. And this is worrying. This is worrying form for Walsall. It's been going on for a little bit. If there's still a good chance they can drop out the top 3 altogether. And certainly, if they was in the playoffs, if you look at it on recent form, if they go into the playoffs, they are not the team you're fancying. Absolutely no way they're the team you're fancying because they've fallen off a cliff. They've fallen off a cliff. And there's reasons for that. Of course, losing Nathan Lowe was always going to be the big one, but it does it does feel like that's played a big part. A lot of a lot of minutes for players, maybe as well, and they've not really changed it. But I'd be worried actually if I was a Walsall fan because it's just they're stumbling their way to it at the minute, but they need a couple of results. But I mean, you do look at their games after that. They play Barrow, they play Harrogate, they play Newport, they play Accrington. I think they've got to get, if they can get something from these next two games, then great. But those are games that are definitely winnable. Definitely winnable. And they need some wins. They need some wins if they want to stay in the automatic places. Let alone win the league, which is mad if we were talking about that 2 months ago. But that's just where we are.
Oh yeah, no, it is, and it really just is about getting those auto spots in any capacity now. Like, forget about the league title. If you get it, you get it. The important thing is you get yourself up to the next division because, as you say, if they end up in the playoffs, even if they had a couple of good results at the end of the season, but it just wasn't quite enough, and they ended up in the playoffs, those players would be devastated to throw away that position. I don't think that's a sudden upturn in form would be enough. It would be a case of it would be a miserable playoff campaign. You don't want to be the team that finishes fourth, for example.
Yeah,
The team that just misses out.
I was gonna say I've pretty much answered this, but let's say Walsall just missed out on automatics and in the playoffs. Do you fancy them?
No, not at all.
No, I don't. I don't. So yeah, I probably agree that a draw doesn't really help either. There's pros and cons to both, I think. But I mean that was a 3:00 kickoff anyway. I mean, Bradford played at 12:30, so it's not like they knew what Walsall's result was going to be. Could they capitalise? Could they balls? They drew 0-0 to Accrington Stanley. As much as Bradford have been very good recently, I think you do probably look at, out of the games against Accrington, against Tranmere, and against Gillingham, they picked up 1 point.
Yeah, I mean, with Bradford, it's a case of I think the attacking injuries are starting to hinder them a little bit. The one thing that just wasn't happening in this game was shots on target. There was one shot on target in the entire game
I've just seen
between
that.
both sides. That is mental. I think Bradford had the better chances. They just couldn't hit the target, and if you can't hit the target, the
They
best
had
you can
6
hope for is a
chances,
point,
didn't
and
they?
that's what they got. So just lack of quality in the final third, and that's all there really is to it. They need to find some kind of solution to that because otherwise they're just in the same boat as Walsall. They've caught up to them, and then they've just started doing the exact same thing. So it's there for the taking. Port Vale, Doncaster, anyone fancy it?
Yeah, maybe, but I think at the same time, excuse me, I think if you go in, if I know they probably look at it and saying that Accrington is a very winnable game, and you'd probably agree if the Bradford fans said that the 20th in the table and looks unlikely that they're going to go down. But it's mad to say that even if they don't, if they're not going to win, don't lose it, and that's what they've done. I guess maybe it's a point. But I could they have done better? Maybe. I mean, 0 shots on target, I think says all. But I think you do probably look at Aki. They have gone on a little bit of a good run recently. I see 3 wins and 3 draws in their last 8 games. They've only lost twice, so they've put a few results together. And they've kept quite a lot of clean sheets in that time as well. They've kept 6 clean sheets out of 3 5 clean sheets out of those 3 out of those 8. Wait, have I? What? Yeah, 5 clean sheets out of those 8 games. Terrible maths. That's a 3rd straight draw. So yeah, I mean, they're not playing for an awful lot, are they? Let's just call it a spade. But I guess that any result probably against Bradford is not a terrible one, I guess, because they can be a very good side, as we've seen in these last few weeks.
Well, yeah, from an Accrington perspective, you absolutely take it. They're not mathematically safe, but as long as they're picking up the odd point, there's not really any risk of them actually getting caught. So for me, it's a very good point for Accrington, and I mean, I've just looked at Bradford's last three fixtures. It's just the most League Two thing I've ever seen.
I've not seen
To lose 1-0 against Tranmere, beat Colchester, who had a form team 4-1, and
oh,
then
those
draw
ones.
0-0 with Accrington. That is mental. That is League Two in a nutshell. Those three games right there.
It's probably worth
I
mentioning
don't.
as well that Bradford have got some very tricky games coming up as well. Port Vale, Crewe, Swindon, Notts, Chesterfield, Doncaster, and Fleetwood to come in their running. There's a few teams there that are fighting for something themselves, like Port Vale. Crewe sort of are at the minute, but need to pick up. Doncaster are, Notts are. Chesterfield might be if they pick up another couple of results. So there's no easy game. There's no easy games in general in League Two, but those ones are not easy at all.
Oh yeah, and I'd say that next one is perhaps the most pivotal of all of them.
Mm.
I'd personally make the argument that whoever wins that game between Port Vale and Bradford, that's probably my pick for the champions of the division.
Wow.
It's such a crucial game, and it comes at such a crucial time. It just lines itself up perfectly. That's the perfect game to build momentum and set you up nicely for going into the final run-in.
Yeah, it's absolutely huge that actually. I didn't even think about that from that perspective. But yeah, say Port Vale win that, they'll be level on points with Bradford. Yeah, that's mad. We did mention about that Accrington, are pretty much there. They're not mathematically there yet, but they're pretty much there. I think, to be fair, I think we're starting to get to that point with Tranmere Rovers. Jack will be very happy with a 2-0 home win over Cheltenham Town, in which their season is done pretty much. I think you've had quite a bit of inconsistency, and the young squad there, and have just not quite done it. But Jack put a few thoughts in the chat. I'll have a quick read as to through some of them. He's put quite a lot, so I probably won't get through all of it. I think Cheltenham tried to catch us with a high press in the first 30 minutes that caused some issues. Huge focus for Tranmere. Tranmere have gone into set pieces. 106 corners without a goal before that, so obviously a weak point. That was in our game, and to score from that was a relief. Cheltenham are a physical side and tried to bully us for large parts of the game. I thought exactly the same when we played them a few weeks ago. It worked, especially with Stubbs versus Turnbull from set pieces. Excuse me. We look comfortable for the entire second half there, with the majority of Cheltenham passes coming in our own half. 6 unbeaten for the first time in 1,161 days. There's one for your stats for those sorts of people. They've won by 2+ goals for the first time in 405 days. I know that's something that Jack's been banging on about a little bit. The fact that they've not won by scoring more than one goal in a game for quite a long time. 3 consecutive clean sheets for the first time in 209 days. That second goal was a cherry on top from a brilliant performance with a side that's been absolutely transformed. Can we go rest of the season unbeaten is question. No denying that Andy Crosby's done, a pretty good job there. Has got them some results. And I had a comment from a Tranmere fan recently that's saying that I'm not giving them enough credit. Certainly credit deserves for Andy Crosby, but and certainly some for the players. I think sacking Atkins was, getting rid of Atkins him going had to be done, because if they'd have kept him, would this form have happened? Very unlikely, to be quite honest. Crosby's gone in there, giving him a bit of a lift, and it looks like they're not far off. Can they go the rest of the season unbeaten? Is Jack's comments, and I'm just going to have checked their fixtures. They've got Harrogate, Chesterfield, Accrington, Doncaster, Barrow, Crewe, and Newport to come. So they've not got a terrible run of fixtures there. I do think they'll lose one of them at the very least, because that's just how it goes. I mean, if they go for the rest of the season unbeaten, then yeah, fair props. I mean, there's probably discussions there for Andy Crosby to be given the job permanently. But yeah, it felt like a pivotal evening at Prenton Park, and 3 points there, and especially with Morecambe winning, but it just feels like Tranmere are getting closer. They're just getting closer compared to the other two teams in the bottom two, which we'll touch on shortly, especially on one of them, because oh my god. But yeah.
Oh yeah, I mean Tranmere thoroughly deserved that win. They were very good value for their lead, and I mean Cheltenham, for me, they've sort of come off it a little bit in recent weeks. I know they've got the odd result here or there, but I don't know. I think their performance levels have certainly dropped, and that was certainly the case with this one. But actually, I still think Tuesday's fixtures become very crucial again. Tranmere next faced Harrogate. If they beat Harrogate, they leapfrog them. Equally, the next side that Cheltenham face is Morecambe. And the way Cheltenham are playing at the minute, if they lost that again, perhaps Morecambe are still kind of there or thereabouts. Just not in a great position, obviously, because bottom two, but not out of reach. It is more the point. There's a lot riding on those Tuesday fixtures still. Obviously, trying to have a lot of momentum, and if they can carry that through for at least another couple of games, then absolutely that they'll be safe. But if Morecambe can pick up the next result, maybe that makes things a little bit more interesting for the teams that are there. Your Harrogates, your Accringtons. I mean, it's unlikely, but stranger things have happened.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm still under the impression that the bottom two just stays as it is. I always
Most
am.
likely.
It could make things interesting. Certainly those games you've mentioned, but I think probably another win or two. And honestly, I just think with how poor those two teams are in the relegation zone, I don't think it'll take a massive amount more to do it. Because I mean, normally the 50-point mark is normally it for like teams surviving relegation in League Two. There's maybe a chance that Tranmere might not even hit that. I mean, the way they're going at the minute, it could possibly do that, and they could overtake teams with that sort of form. But it's still a chance that they don't. But we'll have to see what happens. But you can't deny that they've done an exceptional job. Andy Crosby has, especially with these players. They just needed a bit of a lift. I think I've always just felt that. He's certainly gone in there and done that. Yeah, I think. Let's go to Doncaster. Obviously, it's a good win for Doncaster. It keeps up their automatic promotion hopes going. Arguably, their hopes for the league as well, because they're only 5 points clear, or 5 points behind Walsall, I should say. 3-0 winners against Carlisle United. Carlisle are 9 points adrift at the bottom. That second goal is a disgrace to humanity in the arts of defending. I think I put it in the chat yesterday. I think you could, for Jordan Gibson's goal, I think you could pick 4 fans from the away end, and I think they'd have done a better job with that. It was just pathetic, that level of defending. And I think that just sums where Carlisle are at the minute. There's 7 games to go, and I honestly think they're good as down. They are good as down, if anything. And they're certainly playing like that at the minute. It's either some of those players, it seems a lot of them, I get the sense a lot of them just don't care as much as they're not good enough and they're being paid a lot of money. That's what I get at the minute, looking at some of those players for Carlisle. And I just can't get over how bad that second goal is, taking nothing away from Gibson because he's still got a lot to do. But it was so easy. And if you think you're going to stay up defending like that, then you've got another thing coming.
Yeah, and I mean, you're highlighting the second goal, but honestly, first and third goals weren't much better defensively.
I agree with that. I think Bruce should have done better for the first. I think he should have done massively better, and then didn't they lose it in a dangerous position? They worked it well and was a good finish from Clifton. The 3 awful goals.
Oh yeah, no, they were 3 very, very preventable goals, which just makes it even more disappointing because, certainly while it was 0-0 and at times at 1-0 as well, they were having chances. They weren't necessarily putting them away. Well, obviously because they didn't score, but they were getting into positions and they were in the fixture. But if you're defending like that, I mean, it's inexcusable when you give yourself no chance of winning the game. And a top side isn't going to give you that many opportunities. That there'll be a while where it's edgy, and it was because Doncaster and all that at home have had their moments, but Carlisle didn't take advantage, and when the going got tough, they collapsed, which sounds awfully familiar to a certain team that I follow. But more on that later. But yeah, with Carlisle's players, I do think it. I do think some of it comes into some not caring. Of course, there will be a few in there that are probably not quite all there, not all playing for the club. and equally confidence comes into it as well. And when I said like I say, if you face that adversity, your heads drop instantly. That kind of tells you everything. And
They've got a high wage bill, haven't they, as well? So it's not like it'll be very hard. I think some of them are on long-term deals. I think it'll be very hard to get rid of some of those players, because I think any manager will have to see what happens with Mark Hughes, whether he'll want to stay around for the National League, which looks all but certain that's going to happen now. I don't think they'll make up this gap. And there's just a lot of question marks surrounding it as well. It really has been it's been a staggering few years. Obviously, getting promoted at Wembley up into League One a couple of seasons ago, had that terrible season in League One, and now they're having this terrible season in League Two, back-to-back relegations to non-league, in which they look like they're financially sound. They've got owners in that have invested a lot of money. I feel like they've done it without really much football knowledge, though. That's what I get from it and what I've read for quite a few things. I just feel for the fans. It must have been a very difficult couple of years, and it's not nice to see your team lose every week, but especially in manners like that, I'd be pretty peeved off. But I mean, Doncaster have done their job. It keeps them in it. Morecambe, I mean, they picked up 3 points against Swindon. Of course, Ian Holloway penning a new 3-year deal in the week. He gets to celebrate that with a defeat, which amuses me. Look, it's 3 points for Morecambe. It keeps things interesting. They've still got a lot of ground to make up. They're still 7 points adrift. But I guess they won. I guess. I don't know how much of it you can see. You've seen some of the cameras. One of them looked like it had a sniper bullet shot through it. And of course, their pitch is not in a great way either. But they've managed to get over the line against Swindon.
Well, yeah, I mean, the important thing is they're not going down without a fight, which is more than can be said for Carlisle. I think as fans, that's like, you can accept that, things have gone wrong and, season's gone badly, games haven't been as you wanted to, but the very least you want to see your team fighting for it. And I think with Morecambe, we are starting to see that. I still don't think there's much quality in that side whatsoever. But they're, like I said, they're just doing everything they possibly can to at least give themselves the tiniest chance of staying up. Like I said, every result puts them that little bit closer again. It's just a shame for them that other teams are starting to do the same thing, and they're in that tricky position where they are already behind, and they're the ones with the ground to make up. So next couple of fixtures are crucial. By in 3 or 4 games' time, it could be all over for them, but if they keep fighting for it, why not?
Yeah, at least they're having a go. I see, unlike, one other team who just looks like their players are just down tools already. But I pretty much agree. I think we've talked about it all season about their lack of quality, and I think that's just shining through. Eventually, in the end, that's now 5 games without a win for Swindon, albeit 4 of them have been draws. Holloway said that they've got pretty much any chance of making the playoffs now. No chance. I thought, I thought it was I thought it was done already, to be quite honest. Like I was saying, was it their game against Accrington the other week? This is as dead rubber as they come already. I think it's going to be a mid-table finish for them, which, to be fair, considering where they were at the start of the season for those first few months, was probably not the worst in the world. He's gone in there and given them a lift. Obviously, a 3-year deal for him. We'll have to see what he goes in and does next season. So that'll be one to keep an eye out, especially for me, as to, you all know my feelings on him. Also, can I just mention something on this relegation battle as well? And I sort of hate saying it, but I think you probably do need to keep an eye on the situation at Reading in League One at the minute, because there's probably talk. I'm not sure what the thing is with that. Let's say, I'd hate for Reading, obviously, to be kicked out of the EFL. It'll be disastrous for everyone involved. But ultimately, if you're looking at it from this side of things, finishing 23rd might be the good thing. Like, there could be like some sort of reprieve or whatever that gives them like a bit of a stay of execution, or I don't know. I don't know what's going to happen. I feel bad for saying it, but I feel like I feel like it was different. But was it Macclesfield or was it a few years ago where they were?
Bury.
Oh, Bury,
Bury was the
yeah.
most recent
I
one.
know. I think Macclesfield were already around, weren't they? But they had their issues. And I think Stevenage that stayed up by their expense or something. I think it was, because I think any other season they'd have gone down, and they want to get I think they want to get promotion the next year, which they should have been in non-league. But that I don't think that's beyond the realms of impossible. But it was just a thought I had. So maybe finishing 23rd might be as big as maybe what some people expect, albeit in horrific circumstances, granted. But we'll have to see on that.
Oh yeah, absolutely. I mean, it's an unfortunate situation. You wouldn't want to see anyone really, anyone have to lose their EFL status that way. Equally, it would, I don't know, it would be a very lucky escape for whoever does finish 23rd at the minute. That's likely to be Morecambe. But if you are Morecambe, that's just even more reason to, show that fight. Make sure that Carlisle are not getting that spot. So if the worst does end up happening, you've saved yourselves. But that is the absolute last chance saloon. And yeah, that's all. That it's just another reason to fight for it, isn't it? Really?
Yeah. There's that. I don't think there's really much more you can really say on that. Chesterfield picked up another win. They went to Barrow and picked up 3 points there. Pretty late-ish goal in the 78th minute from Michael Jacobs. It gives them another win. That is their 4th victory in 5 games, draw in the other. They're on a very good run of form at the minute. They are 7 points behind Grimsby in the playoff places. I tell you what, a few more wins. If they can, a few more wins in a row coming up. Who have they got coming up? They've got Carlisle and Tranmere there next to. I think you're looking at them that I think with the form they're on, you'd be rude not to say that they could pick up 6 points, especially against Carlisle. Tranmere, going to Prenton Park might be a bit tougher, but 6 points from them, they could be in touching distance. It certainly could make things interesting against a Barrow side in which we know that their season's pretty much done. And they've had quite a big say in this promotion battle recently with recent results. But it could be a pivotal one for the Spy-Rights.
Oh yeah, it could be. I do think the performance would have to improve a little bit if they do want to win those games, because I mean I'm looking at the stats for this game and hate to be an XG merchant, but 0.08 XG they scored from their only shot on target.
It's the results, isn't it? It's the
It's
results. I don't
results
think
are of
anyone
course
will
the
care
important thing.
3
The
points.
results are of course the important thing at this stage. But if you are going to get those results, you don't want to be relying on a poor performance in one moment every time. You want to be able to really attack games and sort of stamp your authority on fixtures, especially when you are playing against sides that are lower down in the table. Albeit Barrow have been a bit of a stumbling block for some of the sides at the top recently. I do think Chesterfield are capable of it, but I do think they're going to have to be a bit more ruthless, certainly in their next two, which I think they're capable of doing. I wouldn't put it past them.
And look, me, I've hyped up Chesterfield quite a lot of times this season, knowing that when they're on their game, they can, they are a force. I honestly did expect better from them this season. I know that they've had their problems with injuries and a hell of a lot of inconsistency. There at one point they were doing what Grimsby were doing. That's like win one, lose one, win two, and then they'll lose two, and pick up the odd draw in there. But they're winning. They're picking up results at the right time, which could make things interesting. And if your team's like probably in Crewe's case at the minute, they might be a team in which that they could overtake if they continue. If depends on what their both forms are. I know Salford are still in and around there. They picked up back-to-back wins now. Of course, they had the week off last week, but this it's far from over. This playoff challenge yet. Although it's nice to see that Grimsby have a little bit of a cushion as of the moment. Obviously, Tuesday is absolutely massive. And we'll have to see what happens there. Notts County picked up 3 points on the road at Newport County. It looked like a very good performance from Notts County. Fully deserve deserving of the victory. It's another defeat for Newport. That is their 6th defeat in 8 games. They did win the other 2 against Harrogate and Gillingham. I mean, 2 sides that are somewhat near them. It was what I expected from Notts County. I expected them to go there and pick up 3 points, and they've done exactly that. And I think they've done it in pretty good fashion. It looks like a very good performance.
Oh yeah, no, it absolutely did, and they could have won that by more. If they'd been a little bit more clinical, they easily could have won that by a whole lot more. There was only ever going to be one winner in that fixture for me, and that was not. A very strong away performance, albeit against a Newport side that are honestly quite lucky they've got enough points already because they're not at all convincing. And I'm saying that as an MK Dons fan right now. So, uh, yeah, there's something very, very clearly not quite right at Newport at the minute. I don't know if they're just sort of hanging on till the end of the season and then we'll fix it in the summer or whatever. But I don't like what's going on over there at the minute for whatever
It's
reason.
I've always called them weird, and I just don't think Jardim is it. I really don't. I do look at the squad, and there's a lot of inexperience in that squad. They do have a few players in which you look at, right, okay, they're very solidly 2 players, but I think there's a lot of what ifs in that squad, in which they've proven that, I don't think they've had much guidance, and I'm not sure that I'm just not sure on Jardim at all. I questioned the appointment when they made it, and I'm even more unsure now. It's whether they decide to stick or twist, but I don't think they'll do that now until the end of the season. If personally, it depends how high Hugh Jenkins's ceiling is with Newport. It's clear that he's got a plan, to bring in these younger players, improve them, sell them on for profits. That's what more clubs are doing now. But I think some clubs have done it much better than others. I get this is their first year of doing it. It was always going to be a transitional season. And I think we had quite a few people expected them to go down, including myself. I thought this would be the year to do that because I just looked at, some of the players they were bringing in over the summer, and there was just a lot of question marks just throughout it. A lot of experience went, especially in January as well. There was quite a few more experience that moved on. Bryn Morris, moved to Harrogate to move closer to his family, but it was a big name for him actually. Instead of that, yeah, I'm just not convinced. I'm not convinced with Jardim at all, and I think they'll probably stick with him until the end of the season. But I won't be surprised if they look for someone else.
I think they'd be crazy not to look for someone else, to be honest. Yes, you want to bring in, oh yes, the next big thing, we're going to make millions on this player and whatnot, but you have to manage the risk. You can't just bring in as many as you can and then just hope it works because, well, chances are it won't. And that's pretty much what we're seeing at the minute. I feel like they do need a bit of experience somewhere, and if it's not going to be in the squad, it needs to be the manager, really. Get someone that knows how to run that sort of system. Otherwise, you're only sort of second guessing yourselves, causing yourselves problems, and they could be in a very similar situation next season, and you won't necessarily have a Carlisle or a Morecambe there to stop you from being right near the bottom.
Yeah, they've had a couple of winning runs that have sort of saved them in a way because they're very much they're very much on the beach already. They've already picked up their bucket and spade. Can I just say something as well? I think what we do at Grimsby isn't too dissimilar to what Newport are trying to do. I know we're a little bit different as we've probably we've looked overseas for players as well, and we've brought a couple in from overseas. But I don't think our strategy is a hell of a lot different because a lot of the players we did bring in are youngish. They're very young players. We don't have an old squad at all. I think we have one of the youngest in the league. But you do have the sort of big experienced names with Danny Rose, Curtis Thompson, Doug Tharm's 25, but the way he actually think he was 35 with how he comes across, with him being a leader. I just don't think Newport have enough leaders. That's where I am with that. I don't think they have enough leaders at all. They do have a little bit of quality with Camware and Ajib Boy. If I can get him permanently, might be a solid signing. But yeah, nowhere near enough. And yeah, they're just again they're another side. They're just staggering their way. To the end of the season, Salford picked up 3 points at Bromley. It was another very entertaining game. We knew that they drew 3-3 at the Peninsula not long ago. Salford coming away with a 3-2 victory there to keep up their hopes of a playoff place. Still very much alive. They're 6 points adrift. That's back-to-back wins for them. They do probably need a few more to give them that chance. I know I think we said pretty similar for Chesterfield, but I think you probably do have to say pretty similar for Salford as well. It was a very good win against Bromley, who I just don't think are quite there this season, but that shouldn't be a disappointment for Bromley, as we've talked about, by any means. But yeah, it's 3 points for them.
Oh yeah, absolutely. I think the promising thing with Salford was just the speed at which they attacked. I mean, all three goals, they got through the thirds very, very quickly, and that's very tough to deal with. I mean, anyone that's played against Doncaster will probably know that's very much how Doncaster play. They're very quick to get forward, and it is hard to deal with. And Bromley didn't necessarily have an answer to that. They weren't quite organised enough. And I mean, to be fair, in terms of defending, I think all 5 goals in the game could have been defended a lot better. But Salford just had that little bit more going forwards that that little edge, and that's got them the result, and it keeps them in the mix. And it's all about momentum now, isn't it? Just keep going, keep going, keep going. And if you build up enough results, you never know, you might make the playoffs.
Yeah, of course, that's back-to-back wins for them. They obviously didn't play last week because of international calls. Maybe their week off might have done them a world of good, get them back refreshed, heading into what is a crucial final 7-8 games. They've got Barrow next, Gillingham to come after that. With back-to-back victories, they've surely got to. I think they've got to be up for it. But I do look at a goal for Kelly Amai is a player I like. Very fast, very tricky winger. Another couple of goals for Cole Stockton as well. He's had a very solid season on the whole. But you do look at it. Another goal for Michael Cheek as well at Bromley. What a season he's had. Big chance if Bromley can keep a hold of him. And I think they will. I think it's just one of them where I just don't think age is on his side. But it'd be interesting to see whether maybe if you're a League One team, maybe a lower League One team, maybe you might try and take a punt. But yeah, I think he's been at Bromley long enough. I think he might stick around, to be fair. But it's a big win for Salford. Right, go on then. Stadium MK, you lost 4-2 to the mighty Fleetwood Town.
Well, they didn't have to do anything mighty to win that one, I'll tell you that much. The first half was all right. It was one of those, we scored a bit of a scrappy goal, which again makes a nice change, but threw it all away again right at the very end, playing out from the back, and then a catalogue of mistakes in trying to clear the ball or just not defending full stop. Go into half time, come back out at half time, and the mentality is totally the same. We concede again with just about 2 minutes of pressure. Very, very poor goal. And then the third goal happened. And the third goal is perhaps the worst thing I've ever seen in any context for anything ever. Is the only way I can put it. Fleetwood had a free kick in a reasonably good position. You had Kelly making up a bit of a flimsy one-man wall, and Nemain sort of vaguely hovering around 2 Fleetwood players. Neither of them fought at any point to actually mark the man between them. So you can imagine what happens. The Fleetwood guy plays it short to the man between them. He's immediately through a goal and scores. And I mean, there are roughly 6,000 people in attendance for that game. You could have picked
25,000, however your stadium holds.
Well, yeah, you could have picked probably at least any 5,000, and you could pick any 2 people from that crowd, and they probably would have defended better because all you had to do to stop that goal.
Might have done a better job.
All you had to do to stop that goal was just stand there. You didn't even have to do anything. Like, I can objectively say a fan could have defended that better, and naturally the 2 of them get arguing with each other over who should have been marking him, and they both get taken off a minute later. And that kind of tells you where we're at. I mean, it was a catastrophic game. There's no other way of putting it. I don't think Fleetwood were actually much good. I think they were there for the taking, and we've made them look very, very, very good there, which is just even more concerning, because if they'd actually had a good day, it could have been a cricket score. quite simply, it was awful.
I get the sense you're looking forward to the end of the season now.
I'm just looking forward to whenever our new manager's coming
Not
in.
watching football for a little bit, right? I've had enough because I'd have been at that point ages ago. I don't know how
Yeah,
it's gonna work, really.
it's
Still
the
be a pub.
expectation as well. It's just the expectation we came into the season with, and we're now at this point where it's like we're worried about Fleetwood. Why are we worried about Fleetwood? What is a Fleetwood? Like, come on. Like, oh, it's so frustrating. With all
They
due
should title
respect, we are
sorted.
the side that should have been, and we should have been up there. And you know what's going to happen in the summer. We're going to go into it all again, and we're going to be all happy with the squad we've got. And I just hope we get it right this time because in terms of characters in the squad, I don't think we've got it right. In terms of quality, sure, every single player we have in that squad, absolutely brilliant on individual quality. But you've got a whole lot of players there that aren't prepared to fight for the shirt. You've got a whole lot whose heads will just drop at the first sign of adversity. You need more leaders in that group. Some mentality monsters that will not falter at any moment. And you know, there's only a handful of those at the club at the minute. And in fairness, I will give credit to Colin Lemonhay Evans. He was absolutely outstanding in that regard. He was one of very few players that actually kept going even if he didn't necessarily have all the technical ability we needed him to at times. He just kept going, and that is the bare minimum you can ask for from a professional footballer. Otherwise, what's the point?
Yeah, I pretty much agree with that last bit. Look, I just think that you could have all the quality in the world if you want. If your head's not in it, then what's the point? That's how I look at it. It's a good result for Fleetwood. I don't think I, they are going to fall short this season, but it's certainly a result, and they're certainly on a bit of run of form in which he probably, it's put some is sort of good stead heading into next season. I'm excited to see what Fleetwood do next season. I think, if they get it right, in which I trust them to do under Pete Wild, I think they can have a very good year. And they've had some decent results to go with it recently. As for MK, a lot of question marks, and from the sounds of it, a big summer ahead with players and that new manager as well. That's still very much up in the air.
Well, yeah, I mean, the one thing I would say is I don't think we need a full rebuild. We've still got a good core of players there. It's just getting the right
I'm not
characters around
doubting
them.
that, but maybe just a few. But it's just guidance. I think it just needs a bit of guidance. But God knows where though, because
Yeah, it's a
these
tough one
players'
to figure
mentality
out.
has dropped to the floor. Then that it needs some sort of pickup job.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Absolutely. Like the next appointment is crucial. It's about finding the right again. Well, even the right character in the manager as well, because we very quickly found out that Lindsay wasn't the right sort of character for the squad we have. And yeah, like I said, there's a lot of question marks as you say at the minute. I will also say on Fleetwood, I don't think they're a poor side as such. I just think that was one of their off games, and I think they're capable of more. And I would agree with the sentiment you were making that they'll be an interesting side to watch next season. It's just like I said, that game for me, I don't think they had to do anything to win. They could have gone home at half time and we still would have found a way for the ball to end up in the back of our net. It was one of those sorts of games, unfortunately for us.
There you go. There's one more game to get through. I know we're going over the hour, but just very quickly, Harrogate Gillingham finished 1-1, 2 penalties for both sides. I mean, they're both Gillingham are pretty much there. Harrogate, could be mate for an interesting, next few games, but I do suspect they'll get over the line. Very quick one with Gillingham, obviously appointing Gareth Ainsworth from Shrewsbury in the week. Now, obviously, if you're looking at it from a Shrewsbury perspective, I can't imagine that you're best pleased with Mr. Ainsworth, but he's gone to Gillingham. There's another manager in at Gills. It's certainly one in which they've got to give him time with, and I think if they do give him time, they'll the one thing you're going to get of him is the fact that they're going to be well drilled, well solid. That they're going to players are going to run through brick walls for him. That's the absolute minimum for any manager, let alone him. My only thing about it, I just get the feeling that this sort of just feels like the other Gillingham appointments, so to speak. He's a good name there, he's got good pedigree behind him. I have no doubts over him. I have doubts over what Gillingham wants, so to speak, and how they stick with managers because they've not. I don't. There has been reasons for the fact that they've not stuck with manager for a while, and you do agree with some of those, quite a lot of those actually. But I have my I have my doubts. I have my doubts over a few things, but like I said, not necessarily on Ainsworth actually.
Well, yeah, it's exactly that. They have to give him the time to work his project. Very, very similar to what I'd be saying to my own team at the minute. You have to give someone time to build their project. You can't just come in and give them a couple of months, be like, oh, okay, that's not working. Off you go. See you later. I think especially with Ainsworth as well, though, because as you sort of alluded to, he has that sort of that culture, that sort of philosophy behind the scenes. That's going to take time to build. It doesn't just appear out of thin air. Fortunately for him, he's going to have a summer to at least to be able to start to instill that into his players. But I wouldn't be surprised if they started next season slowly the way they have, pretty much in all these recent seasons. But again, I think there are building blocks there to work with, but got to let him actually build something. Otherwise, it's all
I've
going to
always
be
been
fluffy.
adamant that there's been something there at Gills, but there's always been something that's holding them back, and it's really hard to pinpoint what it is. I think that's just what I get from it. I know there's a couple of things you can say, right? Okay, they're not scoring enough goals. They're not, they don't concede a lot, but they're not scoring enough goals. They're not winning many football matches. They're not doing this right. They're not doing that right. There are aspects to it, but they've done this for a few years now. I just don't think it can be all that. You know what I mean?
Yeah, you get that sense that there's something else going on. You don't necessarily know what it is. You don't necessarily have the whole picture. That's very familiar. That's awfully familiar to me at the minute. Um, but yeah, I don't know. I think we have reached that point now where it's a case of you've got to really stick by him now. You've made enough of these big decisions, all the rest of it. Whatever's going on in the background, just just leave it. Let Ainsworth do whatever he can and see where that takes you. Because you can't have another season of what. Oh
Like
yes,
this.
we're doing this rebuild and this transition, and then we're finishing halfway down the table when we were expected to be up there. It's yeah, that can't run.
Yeah, the expectation and the money spent have been absolutely miles off it. And you could probably argue that last year to a certain extent. I think they just missed out on the playoffs. But it was also a case last year where I expected more. I really did expect more with the money that they spent and the players they had. And they fell short by quite a distance, actually. But even more so this year, even more so at an alarming rate. They have gone on a half decent result, half decent run of results recently. But yeah, I mean, look, they're not playing for anything, are they? It's all about next season now. Like I said, I do like Ainsworth. I do like him as a manager. You know what his teams are going to be. They're going to be horrible to play against. You'd obviously like it if it was on your team. But the football might
Respectfully,
not.
no, I wouldn't.
Well, the results will be good if they were on your team. Probably not so much the football. I believe I said that similar to John Coleman when he went there. But there's a good manager in there. I think you'll certainly get that from the Gillingham fans. I think you certainly gave him time. I do question whether he would have that luxury. You'd probably imagine he'll get a good amount of money to spend in the summer again, to go for it again. There might be. I expect quite. I think Gillingham will be quite busy this summer. I can't see them not. It'll be another summer. I think they'll be chopping and changing quite a bit. I didn't think they did a great deal of business last summer, but what I thought they did do was effective. I say thought because obviously you can't really say that it was massively successful. Mate, there's a couple of names that have been, but probably not so much them. But it could be a big summer ahead for the Gills, and I'm excited to see how that goes because I mean, look, if this is the one that's right, I mean, look, they're rocking and rolling, aren't they? Pretty much just going what Gareth Ainsworth's all
Well,
about.
yeah, like you're leaning into a different sort of philosophy. They've already got this thing of okay, we're tough to beat. We're not going to concede too many. And although I absolutely despise Ainsworth's style of football, I would call it anti-football personally. It is effective, certainly at League Two level. That's for sure. There's something they can build there. You're not necessarily going to bring in the same type of players in forward areas, but you'll have the right, I don't know, the right sort of system to get yourselves up to the sort of right part of the division of the division, rather than sort of messing around halfway down the table. Yeah, he's a proven name, and he's done it with multiple clubs. Perhaps not as much recently, but he is capable. And
Yeah, maybe for
yeah,
him, he's sort of like a little bit of a point to prove as well, as he's not had the best of time at, he definitely didn't have the best time at QPR, and obviously at Shrewsbury, he's failed to keep him up, to be honest, and he's jumped at the first opportunity. So maybe this is the one in which, could be the catalyst. But we'll have to see. I think these last few games could be key to see how they set up, see how they go into it. Obviously, planning for next season that'll be key. And I've noticed we've not really talked about Harrogate a lot, but I mean, yeah, this was quite a big story going into this, and I wish we could have talked about that earlier, but although this is probably the worst game of the lot. We'll leave it there. I know we've run over an hour a little bit, but oh well. Thank you very much for listening. We do appreciate your support. Of course, hit the like button, subscribe if you're new. Make sure you download the podcast wherever you get your podcast from. Should be back in the week for hopefully another guest appearance episode from a few. We'll have to see where we get like that. Like I said, it'll be difficult with Notts County for the fact that they're playing MK, for the fact that why did you have to mention it? It's like I just totally forgot that they were playing. Like we couldn't have picked a worse night, because obviously everyone else is playing on Tuesday. But oh no, there's you lot. The big inconvenience. That's ruin those
there
plans.
you go. Well, I mean, perhaps that's an advertising point. If you've ever wanted to listen to the podcast without me on it, that's your chance, because I won't be on. I'll be watching the game.
And I'll be keeping an eye on it. Hopefully seeing 1-0 Notts County, 2-0 Notts County, all the way to about 6 or 7. That would be pretty lovely. And to be fair, you probably won't put it past Notts or even MK at this rate.
Yeah, honestly, yeah. I've already come to terms with the fact we've probably lost. And I'm just enjoying the silver lining that would be quite helpful at the other end of the league table for no particular reason.
Yeah. So basically, watch the pod on Wednesday if you want a good laugh. Or Thursday, whenever it comes out. Right, we'll leave it there. Thank you guys for listening. We'll see you on the next one. Take care for now.